and welcome to the Bat Cave, your secret hideout for Brawl gameplay and deck tech videos. I'm your host, BlindBat8719. Today's video is a little bit different. It's me kind of wanting to give advice to some people out there and add my own 2 cents to the conversation going on about the Brawl format at the moment, where people are complaining a lot about Golos, Paradox Engine decks, and how Wizards isn't doing anything about fixing the metagame. I've been reading a lot of the subreddits, specifically MTG Arena and the Brawl subreddit, and people shouldn't be complaining about playing against Golos all the time and how Golos is ruining the format and whatnot. And as people instant concede. I personally do not like instant conceding to an opponent based on their choice. I think it's worth the time to try to play it out because I feel like that's me testing my skill against them, and for the most part. So again, you play the game how you see fit. And I'm not saying you should not instant concede. I just personally feel like that tells me something about the format and maybe the people who are playing the format. I feel that people have been calling for Golos to be banned, and really what people should be doing instead is to be modifying their decks to address the metagame as it is. I think relying on Wizards to ban Golos is a mistake because that's nothing we have control over. Yes, we can complain about it, we can voice our opinion, but how many people will that take for the Wizards to change their mind? I don't think that's going to be enough. So I have no control over whether or not Wizards will ban Golos. What I do have control over, though, is how I build my decks. And I was looking through what's in Historic right now, and there are deck building choices you can put into your deck that will help you defend against Golo players. So I want to go over those real quick. And coincidentally, the other cards that I feel like people will complain about, partly because of Golos, tangentially you have Paradox Engine is another big one, and some of these cards address the Paradox Engine issue. And you also have Field of the Dead. And again, I have 1 or 2 cards that might help with that as well. So my biggest point that I want to make here before I go over the list of cards is that the whole point of a metagame is that if you know what the metagame is, you're supposed to adjust your deck accordingly to deal with it. Now again, we're not a 60-card format with a sideboard that we can have games 2 and 3 to fix this, but it doesn't mean you can't devote 1 slot in your deck to dealing with a specific problem, especially if you're a deck that's highly competitive and you're running tutors. So, going on now to the list of cards that can help you deal with the aforementioned problematic cards in the format. So starting off with white, you have Heliod's Punishment, Archon of Emeria, and Linvala, Keeper of Silence. Now, I'm actually going to take this time out to say the biggest issue I see with Golos, people complain about him, or at least the biggest threat I find with Golos, there's 2 big threats when it comes to Golos. 1, you have his land searching ability, the ramping, and 2 is him getting spells for free. Basically, 21 mana worth of free spells potentially for a value of 7. That's kind of how I think of it. If you think about the worst things that could happen to you, they're usually around 7 mana or so. So the way we're going to attack Golos is we're going to stop him from searching for more lands, which there is ways of doing that, and 2, to stop him from actually using his activated ability. That would be the other way to stop him from doing it. Now, if they beat you with the cards they have in their hand, yeah, sure, then okay, now at least you're playing Magic and you're doing a normal thing. If they have the answer to your out or your way of stopping them from doing their game plan, well, that's playing Magic. But at least, have some ways of dealing with it. So again, Heliod's Punishment takes away his abilities. And it's not, it's simple. It's a 2-cost enchantment. Yeah, it takes 4 turns to remove the counters. If you're playing white, put this in as one of your removal spells. It's pretty close to being a removal for a regular creature anyway, so I don't think it's a low cost of inclusion. Sorry, it's not a high cost to include this in your deck. So what if you're not running an enchantment thing? I think it works really well. Archon of Emeria is more specific. Each player can only play 1 spell a turn, so this limits what your Golos player can do. They will be able to activate Golos' ability. They can only get the best one out of the 3 that they hit. Depending, now again, if that happens to be a removal spell, then it goes your Archon, there goes the other 2 spells. So, and Archon also, I think, lends it more to a controlling deck. So if you're not much of a controlling player, it's not one you want to be. But I think if we're going to look at Heliod's Punishment, whether you want to be aggressive or whether you want to be controlling or even mid-range, Heliod's Punishment is a card you can include in your deck that will help you deal with Golos decks. And then same thing, Linvala, Keeper of Silence. Activated abilities of creatures you control can't be activated. Now, yes, she is a creature, and if your opponent can get rid of the creature, they can go on. But that's playing Magic. They get rid of, you play a creature out, they kill it. Oh well, they play a creature, you kill it. So I don't want to tell people, again, well, maybe we'll get later on with the other colors. But yeah, not killing Golos is an option, but you're going to run out of cards after a while. So I do understand that. But Linvala is a card you can include in your deck. Again, I think it could work in Off the top of my head, definitely in control. She plays out really well in control decks. Maybe not so much in aggro decks, but maybe in a mid-range deck. But these are cards in white that you can use to help defeat Golos decks. Confounding. Now moving on to blue, you have Confounding Conundrum, Frogify, Kasmina's Transmutation, Mystic Subdual, Deep Freeze, and Ichthomorphos. I'm not really good on my Greek. So a couple of these cards, like half of these cards, more than half of these cards, deal with the fact of Golos by removing his ability to removing his ability to play out, to spin the wheel and get the top 3 things. So Frogify attacks that, Kasmina's Transmutation, Mystic Subdual, Deep Freeze, and Ichthomorphos. Now again, maybe not the last 2, but I would say Frogify, Kasmina's, and Mystic Subdual are all viable options to play. And then when he becomes that 1/1, just make sure you don't kill it. I think Deep Freeze makes him an 0/4, but essentially, because I had a matchup once where I nullified Golos with an effect, and they were just attacking with him, hoping I would kill it so he could probably try something else. So just make sure, once you nullify the Golos, don't kill him. Leave it be a 1/1. And let them try to beat you with the rest of the cards in the deck that are now a lot harder to cast with all the spells, all different mana costs. Confounding Conundrum attacks the deck a little bit differently. It punishes your opponent for playing, ramping out with Golos. So I would imagine your opponent, if they want to play on curve, turn 6, they're going to play their 6-drop. They're going to, was it turn 5? Golos is a 5-drop, my apologies. They play Golos on 5, play their land drop for 5, play out Golos, search for their land, now they got to bump one back to their hand. That now slows down the World Tree a little bit. It's going to slow down the Field of the Dead. So again, that's a way of punishing the opponent for searching for lands, because now they're not that mana ahead. They're not halfway to paying the commander's tax when you kill or Golos. Because I know that's one of the issues with Golos is he costs 5. When you kill him, he's going to cost 7. But because he searched for that 6th land, they just got to draw one more land, and then boom, they're back in action. This Confounding Conundrum will punish the opponent and at least make him play it a little bit fair. And again, it costs 2 mana. It's 1 in a blue. Control decks will like it because, again, it punishes generally ramp decks in general. And then it draws you a card when it replaces itself when you cast it. So I don't see why you cannot play Confounding Conundrum in your blue decks to help you out. Now, black is one of those cards that doesn't really have a lot of answers to it other than kill the Golos all the time, and that's not fun, and that's really difficult. So I really wouldn't say, just kill Golos every time. It's not going to be the best idea. Now, what you can do to deal with something like Field of the Dead that I looked up, though, is you could try playing Lithoform Blight. Now, I would agree with you. You said, well, the card's is really niche. Yes, I agree with you, but I'm just bringing it up to show there are options out there that maybe you're playing an enchantment-based deck. That would be something that would be worthwhile to try out. And again, it deals with the Field of the Dead. It deals with the World Tree a bit, okay? Moving on to red, there's Roiling Vortex, Blood Sun, and Opportunistic Dragon. Roiling Vortex really costs your opponent a lot if they try to go off with Golos, because it's going to be 15 points of damage to the face. Roiling Vortex, if they don't cast any spell, if they cast a spell without paying any mana for it, 15 minutes, 5 damage to the face. Yes, now does it put a little bit of a clock on you because everybody's losing life a turn? Yes. So it might be more of an aggressive option to include in your deck. I don't think a controlling deck will be looking for it as much. But there's an option in red that punishes your opponent from doing what they want to do. Because now once you get them down to like 15 life, now they got to think about I got to blow this enchantment up first before they can start going off for Golos. Again, they may blow it up, but now they got to delay what they want to do or really put themselves at risk of dying with a low life total because you're playing out something that's combating what their deck's trying to do. Now, Blood Sun is an option if you're worried more about Field of the Dead. I'll get to Field of the Ruin later. Field of the Dead in the Golos deck or the World Tree. Blood Sun is an enchantment, draws a card so it replaces itself, and all lands lose all abilities except mana abilities. So now, yes, it can hurt you, the player, a little bit if you have fetch lands, for example, of your own ability lands. But if you're worried about dealing with the Golos deck, that would be an option you could easily put into maybe a blue-red control deck or a blue-red-white control deck that can help deal with what the Golos player is trying to do. So yeah, so they go for that World Tree or they go for the Field of the Sun with their deck. All right, cool. It's a regular land. There's no abilities. There's no 2/2s being generated every turn from a land drop now. And then Opportunistic Dragon is something that I was looking up that I realized Golos is an artifact. Why not just steal it until they get rid of the Opportunistic Dragon? Again, it's something, there's some of those other removal spells that once they exile and whatnot, sure. And actually, I think this says remains. You gain control of it. It's not even exiled. Actually, Opportunistic Dragon's a lot better than some of the exile enchantments you have in white, because there's no opportunity for your opponent to actually take it back to the commander zone, because you just gain control of it. So why not? They have to kill the Opportunistic Dragon first before they're able to use their Golos again. So force them to have the kill spell in their hand. Again, there are some Dragon tribal decks. I have no doubt those are running around in Historic Brawl. Throw an Opportunistic Dragon in there, because it's one dragon that's there to deal with Golos. Why not just include it? And let's say you're not playing a Golos player. Maybe you want to take one of their important artifact spells, whether maybe it's a Bantu Monument, because your opponent's comboing off of Asurek. Maybe there's a Great Henge you can steal with it. Maybe there's something else that your opponent might have that might be worth stealing with the Opportunistic Dragon. It's not entirely a dead card. Green is kind of like black, not a lot of options per se dealing with it, but there is Kenrith's Transformation that you can put on a Golos. So yes, they'll get their land ram, but now they can't activate the ability now. You draw a card, it's a 3/3, so it's a little bit beefier, maybe a little harder to kill, but then once you put this transmutation on them, you don't want to kill the Golos. You want to force your opponent to waste their card to kill the Golos so they can try again. There are options in every color. Now, some of the spicier ones you have in white-blue exclusively. You have Lavinia Azorius Renegade, and she says whenever opponent casts a spell, if no mana was spent to cast it, counter to that spell. So your opponent pays 7 mana, exiles the top 3. They can't cast any of them. They can cast it, but Lavinia will counter it right away. Now, she is a little fragile. She is a 2/2 for 2. But there's a card that you can easily slot into a white-blue deck, or if you have a 5-color deck, you can find a slot for her, I feel like, to at least deal with the Golos, if Golos is all around the format. If Golos is the major, 50% of the metagame, let's say, or something to that effect, or an overlarge part of the metagame, why are we as players and deck builders not putting cards that answer Golos in the deck? That's how you naturally suppress Golos a bit, is by everybody's like, oh man, there's all this Golos tape. Maybe I don't want to play it because if I hit that Golos card, I can't do anything. Another gold card you can use is Ashiok Dream Renderer. It's 1 hybrid to mirror. Spells and abilities your opponent's control can't cause or control to search their library. Now, this doesn't stop the activated ability of Golos, but if Ashiok's out, they can't find that land drop. They can't search for that land, that Field of the Dead, or the World Tree. So I would say if you have blue-black, include Ashiok. This way, and then also too, a lot of decks that run the Paradox engine are unable to search for the Paradox engine. Usually those are Sisay decks, those are Oswald decks. If you have Ashiok out, they can't search for their combo pieces. So now not the auto includes, but now we're getting to my colorless cards we can put in that everybody should be putting into their deck. Okay. At least if nothing else, this is definitely a card worth the wild card. Karn the Great Creator. Karn the Great Creator says, activated abilities of artifacts your opponent's control cannot be activated. He's a 4-cost planeswalker. His -2 you can't use, and whenever you do the deck building, it's gonna say, you're aware of this. Yes, you can never use his -2. His +1, you might be able to, if you have an artifact, you might be able to turn into a creature if you want to do that. But at least puts him up to 6 loyalty. Now you're forcing your opponent to have to deal with Karn before they can activate their ability. If they can't deal with Karn, and you can protect the Karn on your battlefield, your Golos player doesn't know what to do per se. They can't. Their whole point is like, okay, I'm going to spend 7 and get 21 mana worth of value out of my deck. That ain't going to happen. So I think that's definitely Karn is the one card everybody, if whatever deck, whether you're building Jank, whether you're building a thematic dragon deck, Merfolk, Control, Aggro, Midrange, whatever your deck is, at least if you're worried about Golos, Karn the Great Creator, I think, is the one card you should include in your deck to navigate dealing with Golos. That's my thought on that. Another great thing about Karn the Great Creator, opponents are going to be playing Mana Ramp. Even green decks play Artifact Mana Ramp. So why not throw Karn in there? Now your opponent's mana is stymied. Maybe they kept a 2 or 3 lander with a Arcane Signet or a Replicating Ring. Well, now you just cut their mana in half. So Karn is great in that regard. And if you're worried about Paradox Engine decks, Karn is your man. What do the Auto Paradox Engine decks try to do? They try to cast a lot of spells and untap their mana rocks over and over again. When you can't untap your mana rocks, you can't go off with Paradox. And so Karn the Great Creator, I think, is definitely an auto-include in almost every deck if you're going to build from Commander from now on. Until they ban Golos and Paradox Engine, I feel Karn the Great Creator is the one card you should be including in every one of your commander decks, your Historic Brawl decks, right up there with Arcane Signet, the Snow Signet, and Command Tower. Like this, you should include Karn the Great Creator right now in every deck, I would say right now. And the other card, I feel like if you can afford to, run Field of Ruin. You're worried about Field of the Dead. Play a Field of Ruin. Blow it up. They don't get another one. They're good. Okay, now again, it's possible they might play some recursion for bringing lands, but from what I've seen of Golos 6, they don't do that. So just blow up the Field of the Ruin, or blow up the World Tree, whatever one's available. But there are options that we can be putting on our decks to combat Golos' threat right now. And that's what I think good deck building is, and that's how you contribute to the metagame, is by actually realizing, okay, yeah, I want to do this cool, fun thing, and I like doing cool, fun things with my decks, but now when I'm building them, I'm like, all right, I'm going to keep an eye, like, all right, because there's always that, like, you know, a couple slots where I'm like, I should probably throw one Golos, and I have space. Even then, make the space, because even if you're a slave to a theme, you gotta, if you want to have a little fun, you gotta probably throw at least, I would say, at least Karn the Great Creator into your deck to help you fight off Paradox Engine decks and to fight off against Golos decks. So that's it. That's my thoughts on the format. I feel so. In summary, I feel like us as deck builders need to be better about adjusting to the metagame and finding cards in our colors or colorless, like Karn, to deal with the problems that we face in the format at the moment. And that's the only way to combat people doing it. I feel like people instant conceding, that's kind of giving. That's not enough of a disincentive to the Golos player, to the Asika players, to not do what they're doing. They're getting their wins, they're getting their gold, they're getting their experience, and they're leveling up their mastery. You auto-conceding, yes, it saves you some time, but you're feeling miserable because you want to play Magic for a little bit, and you're conceding 5 games in a row out of 6. I don't see how that's fun for us either way. So I would say we need to, get better at deck building, throw some of these cards in, and punish those players so that maybe they might rethink. You know something? I've been hitting against hate versus hate against hate all the time. Golos isn't fun to play right now. It's not worth it. So there's that, and I think Karn should be in everybody's deck right now until there's a banning, which we have no control over. I can put Karn in my deck. I have control over that, and if I draw him against my Golos opponent, great. I'm going to have a good game. I'm going to have a different game than what the Golos player was intending. And that'll be it for the video today. Let me know what your thoughts are on the format, what you thought of my rant here, I guess, my opinions on this stuff. I want to have a discussion in the comment section down below. It'd be great. If you like today's video, hit the thumbs up icon down below. If you really like what I'm doing, please subscribe to the channel, help me grow. And if you think I have a good point, share it with your friends. Hopefully get the word out there, get the message out there that we should start building decks better and having some answers to the metagame in our decks. As always, thank you for visiting the Bat Cave and have a great day.